I think that South Korean people will be very astonished to see these works. I think they will be very amazed. It's something that they totally do not expect. That is the message.
우리가 미처 보지 못했던 북한의 미술 세계입니다. 선우영 화백의 작품은 사진을 방불케 하는 세밀함과 과감한 색채 이용이 특징입니다. 세세한 붓터치로 구름이 흘러가고 있는 듯한 착각이 들 정도죠. 선화백은 진체세화의 대가로 북한의 조선화를 대표하는 4대 화가 중 한 명입니다. 조선화는 북한만의 고유한 회화 장르이지만 낯익은 기법들이 눈에 띄기도 합니다.
After the war, a very famous painter from Russia called Maximov was sent by the Russian government to Beijing to teach the Chinese painters the technique of oil painting. So the first lessons for many students from Beijing came from a Russian professor. But you can see that his influences went also from China to North Korea. And you can really find it in the paintings.
네덜란드 예술재단의 대표인 프란스 씨는 북한을 7차례 방문하며 무려 2,000여 점의 작품을 수집했습니다. 그중 70명의 북한 작가들의 작품 150여 점을 국내에 전시했죠. 그가 북한 작품을 수집하게 된 이유가 있을까요?
I started collecting these works was the fact that I knew that nobody else has ever done it. So we were the first to enter North Korea and find high quality works of art.
북한 미술 작품의 높은 예술성은 곳곳에서 드러납니다. 북한을 대표하는 몰골화의 거장 고 정창모 화백. 국제 무대에서도 인정받은 그는 조선 왕조의 마지막 천재 화가였던 장승업의 대를 이어 정교한 묘사력과 생기 넘치는 화풍을 선보입니다. 직접 정창모 화백을 만난 적이 있는 프란스 브로제는 그와 그의 작품에 대한 칭찬을 아끼지 않습니다.
I cherish it very much, and it's really one of my favorite works in this exhibition. It's a great honor to owe his works. Really, very, very beautiful, and I think internationally he will be very much appreciated in the future.
정창모, 선우영 등 대부분의 북한 작가의 작품에선 남과 북 모두 익숙한 풍경들이 줄을 이루고 있는데요. 그러나 프란스 씨는 이것에 대해서 다름이 있음을 이야기합니다.
It could be that South Korean art students would say about this that this is old-fashioned, and because here, of course, everybody has the freedom to create what he wants to create. Nobody is telling anybody you cannot do this or you cannot do that. You have all the freedom, artistic freedom, to make your own art. And that is not the case in North Korea. They cannot make modern paintings because they are prohibited to do that.
All the art should be realistic.
The art must be realistic. That was an old rule made by the old great leader.
First,
I forgot his name.
Kim Il-sung.
No.
그럼에도 젊은 작가들 사이에서 현대적인 작품들이 눈에 띕니다. 지금까지의 북한 그림에서는 볼 수 없었던 서양화의 기법이나 우리가 상상했던 모습과는 다른 북한 바닷가의 풍경들이 그렇죠.
Which I saw first when I visited him in Kaesong. And when I saw the painting, it reminded me immediately of Vincent van Gogh. So my thoughts were that this painter had been looking very carefully at the works of Vincent van Gogh, and that he was inspired by Van Gogh to make his paintings in this way. But surprisingly, I asked him, I said, do you know a painter called Vincent van Gogh? And he said, no, I never heard of him. And from the mimic of his face, he wasn't lying, he was telling me really the truth. He never heard of the painter Van Gogh. So it's so remarkable for me to see so many resemblances in the way that Van Gogh worked and that this painter is working. So that struck me, really. This work, again, is really, if you put your cameras a little bit closer and try to make really a closer image, it has so many details. It's really a fantastic and lovely work.
여전히 그들만의 교실을 따라야 함에도 불구하고 우리가 상상하지 못했던 이러한 작품들은 어떻게 그려졌을까요?
If you look at this painting, is from a very talented young painter in Pyongyang, and he tends already to go a little bit across the line. You see, he has works in the collection that you could almost see that he is going towards modern way of making art, and that's quite interesting.
그가 하는 말을 이해하기에는 우리가 알고 있는 것이 그리 많지 않습니다. 다만 어떤 그림에서는 익숙한 풍경 탓에 우리의 어린 시절이 떠오르고 또 어떤 작품에서는 유럽의 어느 화가가 그린 그림이 생각날 뿐이죠. 유럽에서 성공적으로 전시를 치른 프란스 씨는 유럽인들이 북한 작품을 좋아하는 이유에 대해 이렇게 말합니다.
They were extremely surprised by the art from North Korea that is in our collection. They didn't combine the works with North Korea because everybody knows that North Korea is so isolated and they have a dictatorship and that people are not allowed to do everything they want. But these are works that people could hardly believe that they came from North Korea, and they really loved the quality. Because the quality of the works are very beautiful. They could come from anywhere. They could come from South Korea, they could come from China, they could come from anywhere in Asia.
네덜란드 예술재단 대표인 프란스 씨 덕분에 우리는 다양한 북한 미술 작품을 만날 수 있었습니다. 그리고 작가와 작품에 대한 세세한 이야기들은 그야말로 숨겨진 보물이나 다름없죠.
Sangwa, a famous North Korean artist. I especially like it for all the rich colors of the blossoms of the trees, the light coming through the background, through the trees, all the vivid, beautiful colors. My opinion is that if, for instance, Renoir would have made this painting in 1920 or 1915, he would have been very, very happy with the result. This work is by Moon Wa Chun. He was very famous for his water paintings. I know his widow very well, and her widow let me buy some of his works, which I promised to exhibit, and I think she would be very proud to know that her work was going to be exhibited in Seoul.
무엇보다도 우리의 마음을 건드린 건 그가 만난 작가들과의 친밀함입니다.
This work is by Chung Chang-mo, also one of my favorite North Korean painters. In North Korea, he is one of the most prominent painters of the country. I have known him really very well. He was also a very, very nice person. In Korea, he had some kind of a pop star image. These works were made by my good friend Son Woo-young, who unfortunately died a couple of years ago at a very young age.
다양한 북한 미술 작품을 만나는 자리임에도 불구하고 마음 한켠이 편치만은 않습니다. 우리는 이 작가들을 언제쯤 만날 수 있을지 기약이 없기 때문일지도 모릅니다.
We chose Kaesong because Kaesong used to be the main capital of the United Koreas. That's why we named it Kaesong. We gave it a symbolic name.